Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
I'm your host, John Turk, and this is the Blind Apex Podcast. On this episode, we are going to be talking about Honda L Series, L15s to be exact, and how to swap them and what you're going to need to swap them. It is the future. K Series is now. L Series is where you need to be looking. Joining me to discuss this topic, another EJ2 driver, but not the track rat, a Honda Insight lover, GLTC data nerd, and future GLTC driver, Scott Malloy. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome.
That was quite the intro.
I actually love this part of the podcast because I have to dig up dirt on folks and try to string it together. So I enjoy doing that. So I've heard you on Slip Angle and some other podcasts. So when you reached out, and everyone was reaching out to me about L Series already, so I figured we might as well do this. And you were amenable to be on right away. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit of an L Series nerd. So happy to cover anything that you're interested in. So.
Oh, I'm interested in the whole thing. So people leave my K Series alone. But I'm actually interested. I have a Honda Fit, and I'd probably love to stuff a little turbo motor in that thing. So we'll see one day. But what do you do? Explain to the folks that listen. What do you do with GLTC? What are you driving? What's the project status? Those type of things.
Yeah, so for GLTC, I do all of the data collection, a good amount of the analysis, as well as getting some help from some other folks outside, some AIM, some contacts that I have at AIM and such, to really hone in on some of the finer points in the data. But basically, I run around and put AIM solos in a bunch of cars and do all the compliance stuff. So I'm, measuring wings and splitters and making sure that people don't have ramps in the splitters, all that stuff, every weekend, for all the GLTC races. As far as, what I'm driving, daily drive a 2000 citrus yellow Honda Insight.
Thing's beautiful.
We call it the booger. It's prettier in pictures than it is in real life. It's got a lot of faded paint and chipping clear coat. So
Instagram filters are good for something, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. I still put my face in Instagram, so it's fine.
Yeah, so that's something that I've always wanted. My wife has an AP1 S2000. So we're just a big Honda family, and then I've got obviously the GLTC project car, an EJ2, so a 94 Civic DX coupe.
Nice,
but I've owned probably 25 Hondas in my lifetime. So.
Oh, you got a revolving door on your garage, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I actually I had a 10th gen SI for about a year, but the market was so good on it during 2021 and 2022 that I was like, you know what? I haven't lost any money driving this thing. So I sold that, freed up some cash flow so that I could continue to work on the GLTC car, pay off some debt, all that stuff. So very familiar with the L15 platform from that car. So
yeah,
and that's actually the car that kind of pushed me in the direction of an L15. Originally, I had some plans for some weird F Series, H Series stuff for the car, just based on the rules. There were some torque advantages for those cars, and then I got my 2019 SI and fell in love with that drivetrain, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, this is the route that I'm going to go. So that's kind of the rabbit hole that I went down.
Yeah, I would be cautious about what kind of torque you want to put down and your torque advantage, but you guys don't run the same tires we do. Don't have the same tire size stuff going on.
I'm not planning to go super heavy on power, so it'll probably end up in the 210-ish horsepower range with probably 230, 240 foot-pounds. It's kind of natural that they just want to make a lot of torque, so
yeah.
But we'll have some big wide tires on the front and all that, so it should be able to handle it. And for 15-minute sprint races, I don't think that I'm going to be too worried about burning down the tires.
Oh, well, I burned down 235 Toyos pretty quickly, so.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at 255s on the front, so.
That's where I'm looking to go.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that because I have questions. So.
And I might have answers.
We'll see. So let's talk about the cars that the 1.5 liter turbo, the L15, are they all B7s or they're different variations, I assume, right?
They're not. So there's several variations. Honda did a weird thing. They made like 5 different variants on the engine. And even within that, they had some different turbos and head design and cams and stuff like that. So, I believe it's the L15BA, which is in the EX Sports. That engine makes 184 horsepower from factory. There's an L15BE in the Accord, 1.5 Sport. So they had 2 different Sport versions of the Accord. They had a 1.5 Sport and then a 2-liter Sport. The 2-liter got the K20C4, which is basically the baby Type R engine. And then the B7 was a Civic Si only variant. And I'm not sure which version is in the CRV, but I believe that it's a version of the BA that makes a slightly different amount of power than the EX Sport.
Yeah, I think the CRV has like a 10.3 to 1 compression motor.
I believe
some variation of that.
I believe they're all the same compression across all the variants. I think they're all in like maybe they're all 10.2, 10.3, something like that. Where the differences come in is one, turbochargers are different from SI to EX to Accord, and the head design is different from basically across all of them. So the Accord actually has VTEC on the exhaust cam, where the other ones are just VTC. So it's not your traditional VTEC in those. And from everything that we're able to deduce, the VTEC is only really used for low RPM torque in the Accord and for emissions control. So we're not really sure whether we're going to see any advantages from that. I say we. There's a couple of us. There's 3 of us who are doing L15BE swaps, including myself. So myself, Ryan Christoph, who has like a crazy first gen CRX, also GLTC car. He's actually getting really close to finishing his up. And then another guy who's in the Grid Life universe, named Jay, he's doing an L15BE in his. So the advantages in that is that it also has most of them have like a single port exhaust housing, like in the K20Zs, where it's just that single port. It feeds directly into the turbo bolts directly to the head. The advantage in the Accord is that it's a divorced port, so you actually get a twin scroll turbo from the factory, which actually helps it make more torque earlier and carry more torque throughout the entire power band. And that is unique to the Accord. That head is not used on any other vehicle. So,
are the heads interchangeable? Have you guys looked into that?
From what I understand, the heads are interchangeable. I think the blocks are basically all the same. The Accords are rumored, maybe confirmed to have stronger rods, which to me would actually make sense because the Accord is Honda's moneymaker, so they're going to put the best parts in that, and it's also meant to be a 250,000-mile car. So I think that they put a ton of money into the Accord engine to make it stronger. And from what we've seen, the Accord engines actually have fewer issues with rods than the SI and EX variants do.
Well, I mean, they're all running over 1 bar of pressure from their turbos. What I read was they're all 16 and a half-ish PSI or more.
Yeah, so the EX is run like 16 and a half, and then the Accord runs all the way up to like 22 PSI. I think the SIs are 21. So basically a bar and a half. Those numbers are misleading though, because a lot of people don't realize that direct injection engines take twice as much boost pressure to make the same amount of horsepower.
Okay.
So if it was port injected, it would be 10, 12 PSI. But it takes twice as much boost pressure in a direct injection engine to make the same amount of horsepower.
Still 10 or 12 PSI in a OEM car is that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't do turbo stuff, so.
Yeah. I'm just learning turbo stuff. I mean, I'm an old D-series nerd myself, so that's kind of how Jaime and I connected, as well as
jingle.
As well as Adam Jabe. He's a big D-series guy, so that's kind of how we all connected as far as Honda stuff goes. So.
Oh, single jingles. They love turbos too,
They do love turbos, but I had a crazy built NA D-series years and years ago that made almost 200 wheel. But those days are long gone. That was back when you could buy one of those engines like full swap from Japan for like $600, and now they're $1,200, $1,300 if you can even find a good one.
Right. Or at best, people were giving them away 10, 12, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I remember those days.
I recycled more D-series engines than I know what to do with. So
yeah, I think a lot of us threw them away. For some reason, they just captured my heart, and I did crazy things with them for a while.
So we've picked out our engine. I'm assuming there's manual Accords. The Civics are all manuals. I don't know about the CRVs, so. That's the transmission.
I don't believe there's a manual option. Yeah, I don't believe there's a manual option in the CRV, at least in the United States. And that's the weird thing too, is that there's all these like weird variants of them overseas. But we got basically 4 versions. And then now there's the 11th gen version, which I honestly don't know much about, but from what I've read, it's basically they changed the designation on it from L15B7, but it's basically just the SI engine now across all of them. They just made one engine this time instead of multiple.
Yeah, you got to save money somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think, early on there was a lot of like fuel dilution issues and all sorts of stuff with the direct injection. People weren't getting them warm enough. And so I think Honda just like went back to the drawing board and made it simpler on themselves to do recalls and stuff.
Yeah. So we've got our car and we've picked our engine and the very limited transmissions. What are the mount options that are out there right now?
So Hasport has a drop-in mount kit for EGDC and then for EK.
Okay.
And then they've also done some fit swaps. Actually, the first running L15 swapped car ever was a Honda Fit. That was Brian from Hasport's personal car. And then I believe his name is Michael from Axion Industries. He just finished up his L15B7 swapped Fit as well. And I think that's much more of a direct drop-in than what we're looking at for our cars, but Hasport definitely makes mounts for it. So
yeah,
and they also offer axles, so that's
okay.
great.
Yeah, that's down on my list to talk about. But
Yeah.
we're talking about a swap we're early in the game. Think
Very early.
2002 K swap life.
Yeah, there's
right?
probably
Like,
a dozen. Yeah, probably a dozen that are happening right now. There's
right.
like 2 fits in the U.S. There's probably 2 or 3 in Malaysia, which is a weird market, and we can cover some more of that later too. And then there's the soul of my Civic, which you mentioned, Nikki Robinson. She has an EK that is running and sees some track time. I believe that's in Arizona. I think that was like the first test vehicle for Hasport as far as like building a drop-in mount kit. And then there's some others kind of scattered around North America. Not a lot going on overseas like Europe or anything like that yet. But yeah, there's a couple in Canada that are happening. And then there's probably 6 or 7 more in the US that are happening as well.
Yeah.
There's actually a NASA STU car that has it, but I think that they were having some issues and are like kind of rethinking a couple things on that car. So,
I mean, I can imagine you're sort of paving the way. So,
yeah, and that was part of the goal of the car too, was to kind of prove it as like a racing platform. You know, like it's one thing to have it running and driving and going to car shows and doing street things, but it's a whole nother thing to like do 4 races on the weekend and have it survive. And I've been talking to a lot of like the WRL teams as well that run the TCA cars, seeing what kind of issues they have, and trying to talk to the right people and get the right people in place to create solutions for some of those issues. So.
Yeah. So what is there a Honda out there for it? Or is
so
it
there's Flash Pro.
There is?
Yeah, so you can use the stock ECU, and I think they have both the Accord and Civic variant, because there's a little bit of difference between the two. So there's Honda Flash Pro, and then there's K-Tuner as well, for native chassis stuff. K-Tuner also has a swap set up, because we all know with CAN and everything that there's body control modules and ABS modules and everything that are talking to each other now. So K-Tuner has actually got, for the EX and SI variants, they have a swap version of their little tablet, like their little K-Tuner V2 tablet, that's able to control and be tunable for the stock ECU.
That's more than I thought was out there.
Yeah. So those are the 2 main ones for stock ECU stuff. There's a couple of different things happening in the standalone world. One of them is not out yet. One of them is in testing. And then the other one is Motec. So Motec is able to control the direct injection and all that, which is actually a bigger problem than a lot of people realize. As far as the future of the swaps, the direct injection support currently with ECU manufacturers is actually not very good. And I think a lot of it comes down to, putting R&D money into it when the EPA has been breathing down everybody's neck about, tuning vehicles and all that. So I think a lot of, like Haltech, I've talked to them for a long time, and they were just like, yeah, we don't see direct injection on the future for some time now. So we've had to get creative with some other solutions, and I've talked to a bunch of different ECU manufacturers about creating standalone solutions. So one of them is actually Mtron. They make a plug-and-play kit for the Honda Fit that we're trying to adapt to run the L15 turbo engine. So it was originally GT86, so FRS, BRZ, direct injection ECU, that a race series in China and Malaysia uses it's called Super Turbo. It's like 300 horsepower L15 turbo engines. Most of them are like the Honda Fit variant. But sequential transmissions, they're these crazy Honda Fits.
Yeah, that sounds wild.
So we talked to Mtron when we found out about that kit. Actually, Ryan Christoph found it, and he was the first one in the U.S. to purchase one, and is working on adapting it to run his L15 in his CRX. So that's one option. There's another standalone manufacturer that I've been speaking with, talking about building an L15 specific ECU. They're based out of Texas. And then, Motec. Motec is obviously like unobtainium money. So a lot of the drag racers have used like the M142 with a lot of success. But, we're talking $10,000 to $15,000 by the time you get it fully unlocked and all that, plus harness and all that, which is probably another $4,000 or $5,000. So,
yeah. So, something we probably skipped over a little bit. What's an L15 B7 costing these days?
I think I paid just over $1,000 for mine.
Is that engine and transmission?
No, so that was engine, turbo. Mine was missing the alternator and starter and stuff because there was a miscommunication with the salvage yard that I purchased it from. But it's super clean. It's like a 40,000 mile Accord engine. And it was a rear end hit, so I didn't have to worry about any of like the auxiliary stuff in the front being damaged. And then transmissions are actually more expensive than engines. I was able to get a super clean one. Mine's actually 0 miles. But my transmission was, I think, 12 or 1300.
Okay.
So we're
That's
talking,
not hateful.
2,600 for like a drop-in, fully dressed engine and transmission. So
yeah, that's not hateful at all. We've definitely seen the prices of B series double, triple that for a swap.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at an L15 or a B18 C5 or JDM B18C, there's $7-8 some of them now. So
yeah, they're pretty wild.
Yeah.
And the K series is not helping out either. I mean,
no, I think you're still able to find K series for cheap, but it's of questionable origin. I think a lot of times,
yeah,
how are they run? Was it regularly maintained? Things like that become a big issue with a lot of these K series that are popping up now.
I really hope my microphone's picking up what's happening outside. I live in the middle of nowhere, and I can hear somebody doing donuts down at the crossroads. That's like awesome. 1.5 miles from my office. So I really hope it picks that up. But there's a bunch of hooligans out here. We all live out here for peace and quiet, and then we're all the ones that interrupt peace and quiet. So
right. Yeah, I live in the middle of the city, so I don't get peace and quiet.
Yeah, I used to live that life. So. So we're covering the ECU, but are you guys making your own harnesses? Are you like depinning, repinning? Are you making your own adapters? What are you guys doing to plug things in?
Yeah. So, actually Bryant, Nikki's husband, makes swap harnesses that are based off the OEM stuff, and he basically deletes the body control module stuff and gets it to communicate with the stock ECU and K-tuner. So that's one option. The Mtron kit actually comes with like a motorsports grade harness. It has auto sport connector, quick disconnect for the firewall. It's all like, Raychem DR25, all that. So that ECU kit comes with the harness, the direct injection driver, and basically a dual wideband controller, as well as the ECU. So it's not cheap, but, as far as like being able to have like a basically ready to go harness, I think Ryan's working on switching out some connectors and maybe extending some wires and things, like rerouting things to fit onto the turbo L15, because it, like I mentioned, it was initially designed for the fit L15, which is sensors are in some different places and things. So Ryan's kind of leading the charge on that, and we've been in really close contact with M-Tron about all that. So the great thing about M-Tron is that it's a torque-based ECU, so they're basically controlling the entire vehicle by torque control rather than just fuel and timing and all that. So it's a really 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 high quality ECU. It's incredibly capable as far as boost by throttle position, things like that are available on that ECU. So that's definitely, and it's a motorsports grade ECU. It's not just an OEM one that's being adapted for being able to be tuned and stuff. So
boost by throttle position sounds like a nightmare for you in compliance, just saying.
We don't have a rule against it. We do have a rule against boost by gear. So when we do dyno pulls, we'll do them in different gears. We'll do them at different throttle positions, stuff like that. But it's definitely something that, with me knowing that stuff exists, it's definitely something that I'm trying to pay attention to. So
yeah. When you figure it out, let me know so we can try to police it on our end.
We can't have a bunch of people. Yeah, we can't have a bunch of people driving around at half throttle making 30 psi.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, I know it's possible in the K series. So,
yeah, I mean,
with the drive-by-wire cars. So,
yeah, definitely. And the L15s are all drive-by-wire. There's actually one guy. He has an Integra Type R that was J32 swapped. He just got his L15 running, and he switched to cable, or he kept his cable throttle. He basically used the element. There's like a little piece on the Honda Elements that does cable throttle to drive-by-wire conversion, and it was an OEM part from Honda, so he adapted that so that he could keep his Integra Type R throttle pedal and still control the drive-by-wire.
That's wild. Yeah, because I don't know. I've had both now, and I don't seem to feel a difference. So we'll see. Yeah,
I think drive-by-wire has gotten really good, and for something like GLTC where we're honestly, a lot of cars are being detuned. It's almost a necessity at some point to have drive-by-wire.
I can go down a rabbit hole about how terrible detuning my car with the throttle body was. So we won't go there. The curve was ugly. It didn't. You started ramping too early. There's limitations to Flash Pro. So
yeah, I think most of our guys are on standalones too. So that kind of helps.
That helps. Yeah, I mean we're allowed now, but I wasn't allowed before when I built the car, and so I have to come up with the scratch. And I got other things I want to buy. So, but okay, so we talked a little bit about axles. My concern is we break things all the time.
Yes.
So you're gonna have to carry spares. If Brian and Hossport are the only folks making them, you're gonna have to carry spares. So put that in your budget.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that, like, Ryan's got some custom ones from Drive Shaft Shop that he had made, partly because he's got weird stuff going on in the front of his suspension, being a GT Lights car, and it all being tube chassis and custom uprights and all that.
Right.
So his is a little different, but we're all kind of figuring out what ends, what inner end we need and what outer end we need and rod lengths and all that. And Hassport's been very helpful as far as that, because there's some differences between the SI transmission and the Sport and Accord transmissions. So yeah, there's definitely like a lot that we've been finding out as we are all building these cars. So found out actually last week that the Accord differential and the SI differential are the same size, same bolt pattern. Because the SI was the only one that came with a helical limited slip. It wasn't offered in any of the other cars. But it's nice to know that the SI diff is the same size as the Accord diff, because we think that there's a better diff option in the SI trans, and the size of the ring gear is a little bit better for acceleration. So yeah, there's just been like a lot of random little things that we've been finding out as we go. And as guys open the transmissions up and see, as they're looking, for differential options and things like that, we've been able to figure out a lot of stuff pretty quickly, I think.
So they're obviously 6-speed cars, right?
Yep.
6-speed transmissions.
All of them have the same gear ratios as well.
Okay.
So the SI, non-SI, and Accord all have the same gear ratios.
So you guys are all planning on running the SI diff, or are there aftermarket options yet?
There are. So most of us are actually going to run the Civic Sport Trans for a couple of reasons. One, it's about half the price of an SI Trans. SI transmissions are around $1,900, and we're able to get ours for right around $1,000, like $1,000 to $1,200, depending on how many miles are on it. And then M Factory makes diffs for the non-SI versions only. The only SI diff that exists that we've been able to find is actually the HPD Honda Performance Development diff that's made by Cusco. And it's also twice as expensive as the M Factory differentials are. So,
as most HPD parts are.
Yeah, so it's a great diff. I have an HPD account, so I actually bought one for an autocross friend, or a friend who autocrosses, Jason Tipple, and he loved the diff. He's like, it's amazing. But, as we're trying to figure out these cars and as we're, testing things, we wanted to start with the cheaper stuff. And then, if we see an advantage to go to the more expensive, then we will. But because the gear ratios are all the same, and there's no real variant as far as gear sizes or anything, we all decided that most of us decided that we would use the Accord Sport or the Civic Sport transmissions, just for cost purposes at first.
Right. So when you're talking the diffs, is M Factory making final drives too?
No final drives yet. There's some stuff in the works. There's a guy out of Malaysia who's building custom gear sets for L15s. And
is he the same guy that builds custom gear sets for anybody?
I'm not sure. His Instagram name is tuned by Capt, CAPTS.
Okay.
But he is doing a lot of L15 stuff, including like CVT L15 track cars and like L15 drag stuff. Malaysia and like Indonesia and stuff is like a weird market for cars, and they tend to do some pretty funky things. But he's building some custom gear sets that are different ratios, like customizable ratios. They're all like shot peened and polished and all that. And then he's also doing some of the gears are dog tooth engagement, because one of the biggest weaknesses in these swaps is actually the transmissions. Even Honda Performance Development makes a fourth gear, but even that has had issues in some of the WRL cars. The gear just explodes. So that's I would say that the biggest issue right now is transmissions, as far as getting these swaps to be viable long term. So
it seems like the K series fourth gear problems are still haunting them then, because
yeah, I mean we've seen failures in third gear and in fourth gear in both drag racing and in the and in road racing cars. So it seems to help a lot to run an oil or to run a transmission cooler on them. So a lot of the WRL cars have actually gone to a transmission cooler, and I think most of us that are doing race cars or track cars are also planning on running transmission coolers. So hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the stress. But
I'm trying to.
It's also adding a little bit of complication as far as packaging. So
I'm sure
to consider.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk to Nick Kors about his setup. Specifically for the K series, but I'm sure it can apply to all of them. Mm-hmm. I just got to get him on so he can spill the beans. But he's also trying to like finalize it because he's really swapped parts around and done certain things. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm going to assume all your intake and exhaust stuff is basically custom, right?
Yeah, so hood clearance is a big issue because of where the turbo sits. It sits so close to the core support that we actually, I think all of us are running it on the lowest setting. So Hasport has the flip mount where, just like they do for the K series, where you can raise it or lower it. Right. My hood absolutely would not close on the highest setting, so I had to flip mine. I think the DCs are better as far as hood clearance. Just the front end of those cars is so much longer. There's actually a lot more space in a DC Integra, especially if it has a JDM front end. That core support gets pushed forward, and they have a lot less issues as far as clearance goes. The EKs, I think, are all running on the lower position as well. But EKs are a little easier to fit an intake on. Like an off-the-shelf or a modified off-the-shelf. So, like Soul of my Civic, she runs a custom pipe over the turbo, but she runs the PRL intake, like inlet tube and all that. So, mine's going to be custom, just one for packaging reasons, and yeah, I mean, mostly packaging reasons, just being able to like shoot it out the fender directly instead of like going up and over the turbo and adding that complication of the intake potentially getting hot too. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with material to help keep that heat out though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at like all the, DEI gold tape and the Inconel wrap or whatever, but I figured it would just be easier to go straight out the passenger fender, down behind the bumper.
Yeah.
And then it'll also protect it a little bit better too. It won't be, getting all dirty from stuff in the engine bay. So, and then, I think a couple of the guys have been able to run the stock SI intake pipe, but the Accord intake pipe basically won't clear anything. It's round instead of like that pancake intake. So that one, that's what I tried to fit that on mine, and it was absolutely not going to work. So
yeah. Working all that out is definitely custom work.
Yeah. And then as far as exhaust, actually one of the guys who's doing the swap out of Canada, he's building downpipes. So he had laser cut flanges made for the turbo, and he'll sell you either the flange, or he's going to end up building downpipes and having those available. And the cool thing about those is they'll be like B series style. So normally it's like a downpipe and then a mid pipe and then back to the catback.
Right.
But his are going to be like all one piece that snakes down under the transmission and ends behind the subframe, like the B series headers and stuff. So that'll make it a lot easier for like running your exhaust out wherever you want past the actual downpipe. So
and then you can sort of keep a normal exhaust or an off the shelf exhaust for it.
Yep, and I think that's the plan for a lot of the street car guys. Obviously I'm gonna run custom exhaust for my car because I want that oval titanium and for hot boy points.
Oh man, who's doing your oval titanium?
I have a buddy who's going to do the welding of it, but I found a company, I think it's JMD Tube, that actually makes oval titanium. So, I want to do like Hot Boy center exit oval titanium. So,
I like spending money, so I figured I was going to do a titanium exhaust here one of these days, but we'll see. My car is ungodly loud right now, so.
Yeah, hopefully the turbo helps keep it pretty quiet, but I also might run, I actually think I'm going to run a catalytic converter on my car just because, just like a nice Jesse cat.
No, don't do it. I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to gut it at trackside somewhere. You're going to melt it. You're going to do it. If the OEM, if a stock K20, if a mostly stock ITR, running purpose aftermarket, performance catalytic converters will melt them, your turbo car's going to melt it. Don't do it. Well, just skip it. If you want, you just put in a little MagnaFlow whatever resonator, and you can tack weld on your little catalytic converter shield and be like, look, it has a catalytic converter on it still, but don't do it. I'm telling you, they clog immediately. They don't take to as hot as we run these engines very well. So even the performance ones. So I can pass that along for sure. So are you guys all going to run 10th gen shifters?
Acuity has a 10th gen shifter that they have an adapter plate that goes over the transmission tunnels, and then adapts their 10th gen Civic shifter to the Golden Era Hondas, and then Civic Sport or SI cables. I think actually even the Civic Type R and Accord 2.0 cables will work too if you want to move the shifter back a little bit. So that's something that's already actually been figured out, and I think we all have it. So
I've been looking longingly at the 8th gen Civic triple adjustable Acuity shifter.
I've had a lot of nice shifters in vehicles. I've had CAE shifters. I had an IRP in my BRZ. And man, it's the nicest shifter I've ever felt. Like, it's just crisp and clean and tight, and it's super adjustable. I can't speak highly enough about that company. They also happen to be a sponsor of mine, so.
Well, I mean, yeah. They put out good products. Mm-hmm. The problem for me is I need more driver mod than I need car mod, even though I love shiny things.
Yeah.
But I definitely...
I was super lucky to have them come on board. They actually came through Hasport. So Hasport came on board, and when I found out I wanted to do the L15, they were like, hey, we'll hook you up with mounts. And then I guess Hasport and Acuity had made a deal for any car that was going to be L15 swap that would be C-track time and all that Acuity would help support those guys too. So they reached out to me and said, hey, we heard you're doing L15 swap. We want to support you. So we're just going to send you a bunch of stuff. And I was like, okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
No,
and they're great guys. I mean, Russell at Acuity is amazing to work with, and I'm sure you've seen Evan Weeder and Mario Moroni and all those guys from Grid Life, Club TR, and all that, with all their beautiful Acuity wraps. So they're super supportive of motorsports. They're heavily involved in the Grid Life community, and like I said, I can't speak highly enough about them. And the quality of their stuff is unbelievable. I mean, even the packaging that it comes in is just beautiful and like well thought out. And I've
watched some of the unveiling or the unboxings, and I'm like, wow, they put more time. Well, if they put this much time in engineering the package that it went out to, the product is probably pretty well engineered. So
exactly.
I'm not
That's
sponsored,
like,
so
I come from like high-end fine dining world, so like all those like tactile, very like nice, fancy things are like something that really makes me happy. So when I like got all the boxes, I'm like looking at all the details and the design work and everything. So
yeah, I mean the GLTC cars look like they're boxes, so they're delivering, right?
They're pretty, yeah.
Let's talk about some specialty parts. Are there any like off the shelf radiators for you guys yet?
So there's not really. I'm working with Rob at Track Tough to hopefully develop a solution for that. That's kind of a drop in, and have like a motorsports variant and a street car variant. Because those things are obviously very different. But I think a couple. He
just
of the guys,
released some billet end mount things.
Oh yeah, billet end tanks. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if that's
going to make it pretty flexible to make things.
Yeah, those billet end tanks are not cheap.
I'm sure.
And he'll be the first one to tell you that those aren't for everything. Those are for very specific use cases. And that's one thing that I love about Rob. He designs his stuff for like, this is for this is for that. This isn't going to work for everything. If you don't like it, don't spend the money on it.
Right.
Rob's a great guy. So there is no drop in radiator solution yet. A couple of the guys have used, actually, I think the soul of my Civic, Nikki, she used a DA Integra radiator and modified the upper water neck to fit. And then a couple of people have used the K-Swap, the Koyo K-Swap radiator.
Right.
With varying levels of success, mostly failure, as far as being able to keep it cool. But the hard part too is that like a lot of us haven't had our eyes on all these other cars and like seen how hard they're driven and all that. So it's kind of hard to say whether it was ducted properly or whether it had proper ventilation behind the radiator. So I think a lot of those things are still being figured out. But my plan is to, have, whatever radiator I have in the car be a production unit and know 100% that it's going to be fine. If it's able to run a 600-700 horsepower K series with no cooling issues, then I want to know that, I'm not going to have cooling issues. Especially if we decide to put a big intercooler in front of it or,
I was going to ask about intercoolers.
Yeah, I don't have a solution figured out yet. I think Nikki's running a PRL, like their PRL big turbo intercooler, just with like custom piping and stuff. And I guess they haven't had any issues as far as like intake air temp. They had a lot of problems early on with the radiator and getting enough airflow to it.
Yeah.
The cars that they come in obviously have big grills that are designed, to cool that engine. Huge
grills.
But yeah, so putting them in a Golden Era Honda with, a tiny little grill opening, especially in EG, they have the smallest grill opening out of all the Golden Eras. Not having the upper grill and all that. That's definitely a big concern, is being able to keep the car cool. But I think, properly designing it and having ventilation out the hood and making sure that you're giving the air a clean path to get in and out is the end goal as far as being able to keep it cool. And then Ryan's running like a custom radiator from a company in Michigan, I believe. He had great success with their stuff with his previous D series swap. I say D series was an EW, like the predecessor to the D series. But he's running a custom radiator in his car, again, because such a small grill opening, weird custom tube chassis stuff. So,
yeah, I think that problem definitely has to get solved. and I'm sure you guys are on your way. The streetcar guys are probably going to be less apt to be ducting and venting.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're probably not going to run it nearly as hard or as long as a track car would be done, or a race car.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure, but at the same time, whatever I design, I want to make sure can also sit in traffic and, be able to, keep the car cool and all that too. So those guys can also have an option for, nice radiator.
Just like my K series episode, surface area is king.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, proper flow too, making sure that it's got, the right amount of fins per square inch and all that to make sure that it's got the ability to cool.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
Yeah, and Rob is the cooling guy, so that's why I'm talking to him.
Yeah, he just put out a water pump housing something for you guys. Is that part of the cooling package you guys are looking at running, or a problem you guys noted?
So that's specifically for the motorsports guys. I don't see any of the streetcar guys running that. It would be asinine for them to do so. But basically that deletes the complicated upper water neck that Honda had for those and the crossover tube that goes behind the turbo. And then it gets rid of the factory water pump and replaces it with an electric water pump. So you're able to do pulse width modulation and run it electronically versus relying on a thermostat to do the job. It also helps with routing of the upper radiator hose. So we specifically talked about lengths of hoses that would need to be made, and the problem is that the way that the stock one is, the hose is actually super short, so you lose so much volume of coolant just in that short run of the hose. So it flattens it out and gives it like a little 90 degree too, so it adds a little bit more volume to the system is kind of the idea.
Okay.
And I think I'm the only one so far that has it, and my car is still a ways out from being done, which we can also touch on later. Yeah, that was something that Rob and I had kind of talked about, and Rob had dreamed up and was like, hey, is this something that you'd be interested in? Do you think there's a market for it? What do we, because basically when we first started looking at this build, cooling was like our biggest thing. We're like, okay, cool. How we have this, it's actually a pretty big engine as far as, being a 1.5 liter. It's very tall. It's very far forward. So everything kind of gets shoved into this small little area in the front of an EG. So cooling was definitely top of mind when we first started tackling this project.
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern, right? Well, we see what the Type R is going through, the struggles the guys with the Type Rs are going through, cooling their engines down. So this is more of a little Type R, not the poor man's Type R, but the mini Type R, right? It's a 1.5 liter. It's still a turbo Honda car.
Yeah.
So if they're struggling with cooling and they have the big grill,
which I don't think big always solves the issue, but it definitely helps when the car is designed around, that engine, that package, that radiator size, all that. I guess there's the old adage that the front opening only needs to be 1/3 the size of the total surface area of the radiator for optimal flow.
Tell that to BMW. Tell that to all the truck manufacturers, where the grills just... I mean, when I was a kid, the grill on a truck wasn't that big, and now it's like the whole front end, the headlights poke out somewhere, So
I think a lot of that is like sitting in traffic too, right? So they need surface area when it's just sitting there versus when it's at
moving.
speed. At speed, a lot of them now have those shutter systems where they actually close at speed because they don't need as much airflow through them.
That seems complicated. Something else they can fix when it breaks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I built you this very complicated vehicle that I will repair for you.
Yeah.
But what else do we need to cover about the swap?
I guess we can talk about like kind of where I see it fitting.
Yeah.
I think currently GLTC is about the only class that it would probably more regularly be seen in.
Okay.
I don't know much about. I'm learning more about Honda Challenge as I listen to your podcast and Jackie's and Jaime's and all that. So, but it's not a rule set that I've like memorized and looked through and had to know. But I do think that H1 could be somewhere that it could make a lot of sense. I think that a lot of those cars are able to run heavier. I think you said that the native chassis SIs are running like 2850 in H2. Getting an Integra or a Civic to 2850 is not smart. That's a very, very heavy golden era Honda. I think my plan is to run high 25s, maybe 2,600 pounds, and even that is pretty heavy for an EG. So I might have to do some detuning.
I ran an EM1 at 2550.
Yeah.
Ronnie, who left H2 to go to GLTC, he was running his DC at 2750, 2775, somewhere in there. That's
a big old girl for for those golden Hondas.
Yeah, that's it.
I think he's in the 20. I think he's right just under 2,500 pounds in GLTC trim. So
yeah, I'm sure his tire wear is happier for that.
Yeah, and he's 255s on the front too. He's not limited to 235 anymore. But yeah, so I think that H1 could actually be a really good place for the engine. It has the ability to make power. Rods become an issue around 260, 270 wheel torque. So that's definitely something that would need to be looked at if you're looking at doing an L15 swap and making more power with it. But I think the happy place is right around 220, 230 wheel horsepower, and I know you guys live in NASA land with average horsepower and stuff, so it's a little bit different.
Honda Challenge doesn't average horsepower.
Oh, okay.
So we don't. Those super touring guys, the TT guys, I don't even want to know what fake math they're using to do it, but
yeah.
Because if I know, I could manipulate it.
I've done a little bit of NASA stuff, like as a crew member. I worked a couple of 24 or 25-hour Thunder Hills with what is it, GTS class? Is that NASA?
Yeah, that's GTS.
Like BMWs and stuff.
Yep. German touring something.
Yeah. So I did a couple 25 hours as a crew with that, and we were trying to figure out average horsepower, and they had a calculator, and I don't know, it was a lot.
You just tell me where you're pulling your sample that then you're going to average, and then I'll make it work.
Yeah,
that's the problem with average horsepower, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do data for a living. Don't ever let that cat out of the bag, because we'll have the squiggliest little lines you could ever see when we're tuning it. So, I don't.
But yeah, so I think that H1 would be a good candidate for that. I don't know what like an H1 S2000's making power wise, but
depends what engine they're running.
Yeah.
So we've got Justin out of North Carolina trying to put a J35 in his.
Yeah.
That's
a thing that we've seen.
We've got the F Series native F-Series engines, K swaps in the Southeast. So
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple guys with F-24s too, like built up F-Series.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, I think the H2 and a native chassis, I think that could be pretty good. I think an 8th gen Civic would be pretty good with an L15 in it.
yeah, I'm not allowed.
I think that that's the biggest thing is like convincing the rules makers to do it, and also proving it. As like, hey, look, here's the car and it's well driven and it does these lap times and it's comparable and all that. Like that's definitely like a hard thing to prove and get a rule written for. You almost have to build the car and then show it.
Yes, so that's my struggle.
Yeah.
The two things are you got to build it and show it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they all want to go, well, is it well driven?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, depends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of my strategy with my car is to actually I wouldn't say that I'm the best driver. I haven't been even really in a seat in 4 years, so my plan is to actually build the car and then kind of go up through the grid life ladder system. But I wanted to build it to the spec of the rules so that, when I am ready for GLTC and they sign me off that I'm ready for wheel to wheel, then the car's ready to go and it's built to the rule set. So, but yeah, my plan is to, give it to Eric Catil, give it to Ronnie Vidoc, give it to these guys and show what the car can really do and, have them help me with setup and stuff like that. So I definitely want to share the car a lot and, make it well known. Like, look, take me out of the equation. The car's well driven. There's nobody who's going to deny that Eric Catil or Ronnie Vidoc or Tom O'Gorman or whatever are, incredible drivers. Right. So that takes that question mark out of it and shows what the car.
My issue is handing over keys to a car I just finished building where I know exactly how much money I have in it.
Yeah, I don't really care about that so much. I want people to know what the car is capable of. So,
well, so the other thing is maybe they drive it and you have it set up garbage, right?
Yeah,
that becomes a problem.
I would make sure that it was set up before.
Yeah, but if you look at Ronnie's car, if you look at Eric's car, if you look at what Tom's driven in the past, they're not all set up the same.
Oh, so, for sure. Yeah.
You have to have a compromise.
Eric and I talk a lot too. So, I kind of know, he and I have bounced a lot of ideas off of each other. He's helped me with things with the build. A lot of my suspension is based off of his original EG. So I've got all the fancy kingpin stuff and hone developments, geometry correction, and all that stuff. So, we'd put a little baseline setup in it and see what it can do.
Yeah. So what is the status of your car right now?
So my car, part of the problem is that I live in Nashville and either somebody in my neighborhood or the city came by and decided that having my car on jack stands in my driveway was not okay by the city. Even though it was nicely maintained and cleaned and covered and all that, they didn't like it. So the car had to go into temporary hiding at my parents' house. They sold that house.
Now, when it was on jack stands, did it have legal plates and all that stuff, or no?
It did not. No.
Okay.
No, because I drove the car for a little bit, and then the original D series started having issues, and I was like, well, I'm just going to tear it down. So I never even actually switched the title into my name or anything. But then, so then it went to my parents' house. They sold that house, so the car had to move again. So it's actually at my buddy Andrew, who's also building a GLTC car. He lives really close to me, so it's at his house until tomorrow, where it goes to my brand new fancy garage. So then the build will resume, but it had to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it happens.
But as far as status, the engine and trans are in the engine bay.
Okay.
I've done a bunch of stitch welding on the car. It's, gutted, torn down basically to a bare shell. And then all the suspension parts are bolted up to it now just so that I can make it a roller. And then I'm basically going like system by system and checking things off. So my last suspension parts just got ordered. Actually, my coilovers were just ordered this week. And then that will check off everything on the suspension side. So then I'll start moving on to like the cooling package and stuff like that, getting it plumbed, getting fuel lines, all that stuff in it. I want to make it a runner and do some testing before I actually like take it and get it caged and make it pretty.
Yeah. I was going to ask about when you thought you were going to put a cage in it, since you're working up the ladder.
Yeah, so I will cage it before like it's actually going to like not competition events, but like grid life events. I just want to have it caged just for safety. I mean, it's a 94 Civic with thin sheet metal that's gonna be probably the fastest car I've ever driven on track. So I want to make sure that I'm safe. But tentatively, the plan is that it'll start like really seeing a lot of track time probably 2025. So I'm going to take the rest of this year and next year to like get everything dialed in, get it built, do some test days, probably late 2024. And then 2025 will be the plan for like full effort. Make like really, really shaking it down and getting myself ready, getting the car all set up. So,
okay.
I operate on a very, very small budget. So,
hey man, I'm adamant. Okay. First off, the most listened to episode for this podcast year to date is the budget. So
yeah,
you think you're on a small one, somebody else might have a smaller one. I thought I had a small budget. I know people who have smaller. I know people have bigger. It doesn't matter. Yeah. My biggest thing about everybody in budgeting is just making sure that you're legitimately doing it. Mm-hmm. So you can do what you need to do to the car to make it safe, and do what you need to do so you can get out there and optimize the amount of track time you can get your hands on. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of my biggest things is, I want the car built a certain way. This is a dream car for me. Like I've always wanted to build an EJ2 race car, like since I was in high school and I had my first EJ2. Like it's a dream build to like be able to do a full like shell ground up, like all new bolts from Honda, like, all that, just like all the nice things that I've always dreamed of. So you're going to
go broke buying bolts from Honda.
I got some help with that. So, okay. But
we clean them and get them rezinced.
Yeah, I don't know. I worry about hydrogen embrittlement and stuff too if they're not zinced right. So, luckily I run OEM on my side to get all new bolts and stuff like that. So
it's helpful.
We've got a running list of things that. Bolts that I need to replace and stuff like that. So, and luckily my car was actually like a really clean car. It was a Southern car its whole life. So, don't have to worry about rust. Like all my lower control arm bolts just broke free. Like didn't have to get a breaker bar out. Didn't have to cut anything. Like I got pretty lucky. The body's got some dings and dents and stuff, but we'll make that pretty too and get a nice livery on it. And, but yeah, so it's one of those things where this is a dream build for me, and I want to do it a certain way. So if it takes time to do it, then that's what it takes. But I've also got Trail Brake is another one of my partners. They're one of the biggest AIM dealers in the country. Matt over there, and he wants to put a bunch of sensors and stuff on the car. So
get those shock sensors going.
Yeah. So that's one of the things, we want to put shock pots on it and make sure that we're making setup changes based on data, not just on, on a whim. So,
boo.
And my suspension sponsor, they're big into, putting shock pots on cars and making sure that everything's working right so that should we decide to revalve later on and change spring rates and all that we know, we have data to back those changes. So
you're supposed to mention your suspension sponsor. It's not just call them your suspension sponsor.
Yeah, so Annex Suspension, they're based out of Fremont, California. There's some buddies of mine from my FRS BRZ days when I lived in Northern California. So I'm actually ordered their first set of their new motorsports line of suspension that's coming out hopefully soon. And we're going to have some nice custom triple adjustables on it. So they're going to help me come and set it up and do all that because I don't know how to turn all those knobs.
Me either. That's one too many knobs than I'm comfortable with, and I'm not really comfortable with two. So
yeah, I had doubles on my BRZ, and I had just started to figure those out. And then they were like, "Hey, so we want to do triples. Are you interested?" And I was like, yeah, sure." So I was like, "Are you guys going to fly out and help me set it up?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "All right, cool. Let's do it."
And business expense life is amazing.
Right. So yeah, there'll be nice remote reservoir, triple adjustables, Swift springs, all that good stuff. So fancy, too fancy for me. I don't know why I deserve any of the support that I've gotten, but I'll definitely take it because my budget needs it.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I deserve the support that I've gotten over the years, but I'm very appreciative for it. So,
yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest things. I've been lucky to get a lot of support, sponsor support, and I hate the word sponsor. Actually, I say partners.
Amen.
We develop stuff together and build a relationship over years. So, I've been very fortunate to get some really great partners on board, and a lot of people who really want to see this happen and who have been understanding of my timeline and all that. Initially I had one timeline, and then life happened and COVID happened and all that. So things have gotten delayed. And, like I said, I also want to make sure that the car doesn't go out and fall on its face the first time, with a bunch of partner decals and nice livery all over it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
putting the money
rough
in and putting the effort in up front to hopefully mitigate some of those issues.
Awesome. So where can people find you, follow you for this build? I'm sure most people who listen to this already follow you, but you never know.
I don't know about that. I don't have a big follower base, but it seems to be pretty targeted. So, on Instagram, GLTC_EJ2. I've got a Facebook page, GLTC EJ2. My personal Facebook, Scott Malloy. That's most of it. You can find me at pretty much every Grid Life festival around this year, I think, if not all of them. I'll be at Watkins Glen in a week. Feel free to come up and say hi.
I'm booked.
Be running around with I'll probably be running around with aim solos in my hand and a clipboard. So.
That's how everybody can find you at the track. So
yeah, exactly. I'm the really tall guy with long hair that runs around the paddock.
Yeah, awesome. Any parting shots on what people need to consider when they look at doing a L15 swap?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of it. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I mean, I'm available. I have a big group chat of everybody who's doing L15 swaps currently that I can find. And we all share stuff as we find it. And, it's actually been really great, because there's people scattered all over the country doing different things and using different variants of the engine. So, I'd be happy to add people to the group chat if you're, doing L15 stuff, you want to learn about it. Just big open book. The whole thing is sharing with the community, growing the community, and making sure that, we're keeping these cars that we love so much on the road and keeping them on the track, and doing new, fun, and interesting things.
All right, man. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I had half dozen or more DMs about this topic, and then you hit me up, and I was like, yeah, let's go. So
No, send any of those people my way. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I wouldn't say that I'm like the expert, but there's a bunch of people in that group that have done it and are doing it. So there's definitely a lot of information to share.
Yeah, I don't know if they're actually doing it. I think they're more on the inquisitive side. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, happy to answer any questions. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.